Hard work, that's what they say. Hard work, I earn my pay. Hard work, do it every day.
All right, welcome once again to the Work Ethic Podcast. And I'm really excited to be sitting here with Ashley today. So Ashley Caron is a friend that I have made through the Sorcerer Scholarship Program with V Friends. So there's been a couple episodes we've actually done. We had Sakari on and Liz on. So she is one of the five, as am I, Sakari, and then Ernesto, who we have not gotten on yet, but I've got him in the crosshairs. But Ashley, I'm so glad we've been able to connect many times for many reasons, but had yet to sit down and actually record an episode. So I'm super grateful you were able to set aside the time. And let's just start here. I'm going to throw you the ball. Why don't you just introduce yourself to everybody and we'll go from there.
I just want to say thank you for opening up your platform to me. I am Ashley. I'm from Trinidad, as you could probably tell from my accent. I am a consultant with over 10 years experience in social media marketing. So I grew up in poverty and I've experienced all of the things that comes with that: food insecurity, childhood abuse, parents and grandparents who had addictions. I've even lived through being raped and almost killed. And so all of these things have taught me that life is not fair and that there's a great deal of inequality in the world. So that while, yes, these experiences did teach me that the world is an unequal place, it also taught me through my grandma and my mom and through the entrepreneurs that I've worked with that entrepreneurship can be a very powerful vehicle for social and economic change. Mm-hmm. And in the past year, I've been working with Caribbean nonprofits who also believe this. This has been the work that I am just so obsessed with that I would do until my last breath. And it doesn't matter if it's in the area of girls' education, climate resilience, survivors of gender-based violence, political refugees, or even agripreneurs. These nonprofits are really seeing that people really, this sounds cliche, but people don't want handouts. They want the opportunity. They want something to hope for. They want the ability to build something that gives them, the ability to take care of themselves and their families and to serve their communities. And then the project that I'm working on right now came as a result of all of these insights from working with over 180 entrepreneurs and realizing that their needs are quite similar in terms of the early stage entrepreneurial support that they need. So I'm building an ed tech platform that will hopefully meet some of these needs.
I know everybody is there's so much embedded in that. We got a million things to talk about already. I want to dive in, and to do that though, because it's weird. It's like you prompted all these things, but I think the place to start with you is let's go back in time. Mm-hmm. So I want you to think back to your earliest memories of the word work. So the concept of work, growing up, when did you become aware of this concept? What did it first mean? How did it take shape in your life? And just try to think as far back as you can.
Mm-hmm. One of my first memories in life, not just, because of early childhood trauma, I don't actually have a lot of childhood memories. But one of my first memories in life is going to the market with my grandma, not to buy, but to sell. And so vendors would, they would get their little booths and things like that. We were not one of those official vendors. We would basically spread a sheet on the ground and sell cassava or provisions or something, whatever she happens to get her hands on. Yeah. And so that was a formative experience for me, that you are not confined to your current situation. There is something in your life that will give you the opportunity to trade either your time or a product or, cassava in our case, for something that could benefit your family and that could help your family just move up a little bit.
That's so good. How old were you then?
Maybe 5.
Yeah.
Maybe younger. Yeah. I love my grandma, and that is kind of one of my core memories. One of the things that I'm so grateful to her for taking us. So she would kind of rotate between me and my sister and one of my other cousins, because if you have a kid there, people might be more likely to
I was gonna say you're a good yeah. Uh-huh.
So yeah.
My wife said that, so her dad was a firefighter up in New England. He's they have a volunteer firefighter department, and he was like the captain of the department. I don't know if he was when she was young, but he they when she was very young, probably that same age, and cute little kid, they would do these like barbecues for the community, and it was a way to raise money. But she was like, oh, they would always send me around holding the boot, going to every table, because they just raised way more money when this cute little kid came up. It was like, yeah.
Yeah, she stopped taking my sister after a while because my sister was really sassy. So she would
She was
actually
not affecting sales the right way.
She was like not carrying her. But yeah, I just love that because I learned that, yeah, we were poor. Yes, we didn't have water. Yes, my granddad and my dad were addicts. Yes, all of these problems, but there was something. There was a way to get something that we had, to be able to buy food, to be able to make sure that the electricity didn't go out, to be able to just buy stuff for school. That I love her so much, for as much as I hated it then, and as much as I spent like a great deal of my life being ashamed of coming from that level of poverty. Love it right now. It's I just absolutely have so much love and respect for her, because it would have been easy to just give up. She had every excuse. She, like me, I think this is a problem in a lot of the Caribbean. A lot of women are abused, especially by people that they're in relationships with. And so she had every excuse to just give up, and she didn't take it. She just always decided that there was a way, and she would find it.
Yeah, it seems like a super significant early set point for you, like this model. And I imagine it took years and years before you could like articulate that. But like, as I think about even your own engagement with kind of social entrepreneurship and like this kind of like willful determination to like, even the way you framed, like you're not confined to your current situation. It's like this early memory seems to like be directly connected to work that you're doing today. I'm curious, like, I don't know how you make sense of that, like that thread throughout your life. And do you feel like there's lots of these like bricks that stack toward that? It's like, oh, first memory directly connected. It's just, that's unique, I think.
Yeah, definitely. We were not entitled. We were always working. We were all, and of course there are like negative consequences to overworking and hustle mentality, and
Sure.
unlearning some of those things is the work now. But yeah, I've been working since I was, well, aside from with my family, and that, like outside of that, with like companies and businesses, maybe since I was 13 or 14, like since it was legal to work.
Yep.
Basically. So yeah, that was instilled in us in a very at a very early age. And of course I have a lot of reflections on that, as I've learned more about economic equality and social justice and these kind of things. Like, there is a responsibility that governments abdicated that led us to be in that situation. But at the same time, that work ethic is incredibly central to who I am. And that belief that yes, it might suck. Yes, I might want to like not live right now, but there is a way. There is a path out of this. And sometimes it's just a matter of waiting. Sometimes it is, going and looking for something, or looking to see what you have. But there is always a way. That is central to who I am.
Man, it's incredible. Do you a lot of the I was always working. I just want to double click on that for a second. Like because maybe this does map to the experience of poverty. So let me give you like a little context of some conversations on the show. So a lot of times I'll ask people that earliest memory of work question, right? And then they'll say they'll talk about their first job or their parents' job, right? One of those two things are common answers. And then I'll say, well, are there things that you were working at that weren't employment, right? So one of the goals that I've had in this conversation is like recognizing there's a lot of stuff we work on that isn't just for employment, or, you know, it's not a job, but we work at relationships. We might work on our bodies with health and whatever. We might do inner work with healing and things like that. There's a lot of work, like there's a lot of work in life that isn't economic, right? And yet one of the, and I couldn't like single out a guest, but one of the like nuances around that conviction has been, sure, however, when you're in, let's say, extreme poverty or like that, that's great. But like often people don't have there's not the freedom to to consider work that isn't economic because of like the existential reality of being poor or of, and I'm just curious, like for you, like as I just say all of that, how you think about like back in those early days, like thinking about, I was always working. Is that always equated economically? And then are there ways that you're like, no, actually there was like work and work ethic that is separate from that in that context?
Yeah, definitely. I'm apologizing about the siren. That's
We don't hear it. I don't hear it.
okay, great.
Don't worry about it.
Right. So yes, there is that responsibility as that you are a part of something. You're like, nobody in my life exists to serve my needs completely. I am a part of a family, even from a very young age, that sacrificed so that I could have opportunities to go to certain schools, to get books, to get fed every day. And that wasn't always the case. You know, like I know what it's like to not have food and to go to sleep hungry. I know what it's like to watch my mom be in pain because she did not have enough money to buy food for us. Like, so yes, and so at least maybe until I was like 16 or 17, yeah, there was a responsibility to work on academic success or to do well in school. You have that responsibility because people are sacrificing for you to get this opportunity. And yes, so definitely. And you know, as I've gotten older, that has played out in other ways, but also, yeah, and as we've risen out of poverty, then yes, health does become important. Therapy, incredibly important. Like, yes, so I agree with you that work isn't just limited to economic, to what we could earn, but to every area of life.
And yet there are times in life where it's like, yeah, but also this needs to make money. I need to make some money.
Yeah,
Here, right? I need to
exactly.
sell
No,
some cassava.
100%. Yeah, completely. But yeah, but when we have the opportunity to do the other kind of work, recognizing that it is a privilege, mental health is a privilege, therapy is a privilege.
I think that is kind of the, yeah. It's like, thank God that you can give effort to that, right? Where it is, because it is a privilege to have the bandwidth to do that, where you're not just in excruciating suffering.
Yeah, to find an hour a day to work out, or half an hour a day to work out is a privilege. So yeah.
So you mentioned there was just in passing, you're like I think you said dad and granddad were struggle with addiction. Yeah. And I'm just curious, like so and not to make assumption of that, but like I'm just curious, like within the family, what like were people, I mean, what was like what models, I guess, of work did you have in terms of the adults in your, so you talk about grandma, and like grandma's this amazing model. And then I'm curious, as you mentioned addicts, and I don't want to make assumption about that, but I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's, they still have like strong example of that in those people, or if there's like what become counter examples or something like that. I'm just wondering about the landscape of adults for you kind of growing up, in terms of like you being able to kind of conceptualize the path forward for you in terms of work and vocation and development.
Yes, my granddad and my dad. My dad still struggles with addiction, and my granddad died a long time ago, maybe about 15 years ago. But yeah, so him and my grandma, my mom, my dad, and my sister and I, we all kind of lived in the same house. And my dad he did not always live with us because of the addiction, because it was was difficult for him to keep jobs. He was abusive, he was violent. Yeah, so, and I think that also is why a lot of my early work focused on economic empowerment for women, and why the work that I love doing right now, I love all of it, but it is particularly fulfilling to be able to work with survivors of gender-based violence, or even young women, young girls in high school, to help them carve an entrepreneurial path, so that they are never in the situation where they are financially dependent on somebody who's being abusive towards them. So yeah, it definitely has. And it's also part of the reason, like, this also affects relationships, this affects everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is also part of that work, building a happy, healthy relationship, coming into it with very low expectations of men, with a real
Yeah, like yep, no, sure. It's like, well, here's the model that I have working with. It's like, you can watch all the movies you want, still 99% of your context is going to be mom and dad. Like, that's what I saw with the majority of my life, right? It's like, that is what we bring to our relationships when we get to them. And it's like, we each have a version of that, and they're not always the most encouraging of versions.
Yeah, but also being able to, to do that work in therapy. Like, I didn't start this relationship until after I had been in therapy for a month, and being able to do that work, and then have a partner who was also committed to giving me the space to kind of rewire certain things or figure out things for the first time. Was very
without and go as deep or as not deep as you want with this, because I don't want to like pry into like the inner work type stuff, but I am interested in the framing of it as work. It's always stood out to me as like it is real work. And then when we were thinking, like, you were using language earlier around like people sacrifice for me to be in school, or I had to work really hard, or like it's like effort and sacrifice, and there's like these other words that will kind of bring to language around work. But then we'll say also, when you're talking about healing and therapy, it's like doing that work. And I think it is right and appropriate that we call it work. Like, that it's difficult, it takes sacrifice, it's hard. I'm curious though, just like to hear you kind of, I don't know, reflect on kind of that in the work of inner work, right? Like the what is under construction or deconstruction, or like, what is it that is taking place? I'm just curious if you have thoughts around that.
So I initially went to therapy for after I was raped and almost killed, and I not immediately after, because I couldn't deal with it. I just packed it down. I'm like, I'm not looking at that box. I just have to go to work. I have to pay my rent. I have to do all these things. So it was a few years after that I actually was able to go to therapy, and it started there. But very quickly we went into all of the childhood things, and how that manifested in relationships, how that manifested in work, how that manifested in what I believe about myself. And it is work. It is a 100% work. Anybody who has gone to therapy knows that it takes dedication, it takes commitment. And I love my therapist to this day. I don't see her at all anymore, but just incredibly grateful for the ability to have somebody. And I think, we could talk about mentorship and coaching also in the context of the Gary Vee experience, but there is something so valuable from someone sitting across from you who has not had your life experience, who can give you a different perspective. And I'm just always so grateful for anybody who's able to do that for me, like including you, including everyone else in our little sorcerer circle. So 100% mental health is work, and it is very challenging work, but I was very lucky to have a therapist. I got her like she was just finished with her master's, I think maybe in August. She became my therapist in September, so she was really cheap. I was able to afford it.
Perfect.
I was able to stick to it. So yeah. Yeah.
You know, and then with it's interesting, like I'm curious how much you attribute your vocational, let's say, success, like as you've been building these projects and working with other entrepreneurs, how much you would look back to, how much you would attribute to that kind of work that you did and the things that you've been through. It's like, I know sometimes some of the hardest things we go through become like what created in us real assets, real skill sets that we bring into the future. I'm just curious, like, because I know like we, work in terms of employment is this way, right? You go and you work, you sacrifice this time now, this effort now, so that you get like these rewards later. It's almost like like for future reward, whether it be like the paycheck that's coming in the end of a week or whatever. But then like the dividends that are paid from doing that work, both in your relationship and in your vocation and with your own mentoring and consulting relationships, like, I'm just curious how much you would point to that as like, this was time well spent, and like what you feel like you've left with.
Therapy, you mean? That
Yeah.
power?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would not be an entrepreneur. I would not be happy and fulfilled and willing to work in all areas of my life without it, because what poverty and early childhood abuse teaches us is that we're inherently unworthy. So there's nothing can grow from that really unless that belief is challenged. So whether somebody does that in therapy or out of therapy, but coming to the realization that I have value and I am not condemned. So this is something like huge realization for me in therapy. I had not gone through a 5-year period in my life without some kind of sexual abuse. And I sat there and I'm like, well, my therapist's name is Anna. I'm like, Anna, is something wrong with me? She's like, why do you think it's you? I'm like, because it keeps happening. And having that perspective of like, it's not you, it's society, and culture is made up of a petri dish of like a lot of other circumstances. And being able to know from somebody else, somebody that I trust, that I respect, that I wasn't like creating these situations, was mind-blowing for me, because I had gone like 25 years of my life thinking I was broken in some way and attracting people who abused me. And of course there's like psychological things that we learn to tolerate, that we also have to unlearn. But huge.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive, because at some level it's core
Mhm.
to your identity,
Yeah.
right? Which is what all of your work is going to grow out of, is like who you are and what you have to bring and what you have to offer to a situation.
Mhm.
It seems like a substantially important message to kind of wake up to and recognize about yourself and the world that you're in.
Yeah, just to believe, just to have someone genuinely believe in you, seeing all of your brokenness and seeing everything that still needs healing, and say, yes, I think you can do this, and yes, I think that you'll be great at it. And I'm not just saying that, like, these are the reasons, or like, ask me, because that's usually what she would do. She'd be like, well, why do you think you'll be good at this? And then I have to now list the reasons and counter the voice in my head that's telling me that I'm not good enough. That that work is invaluable. I would not be here. I would not be happy. I would not be working on things that I am obsessed with.
Well, and it's why I wanted to kind of ask you to share, because I think it is from listening to you share your story a few times in other calls and things that we've done. I've been like, really, it's very clear that this work is deeply rooted, that it isn't just like, oh, I thought of a nice thing to do with my time or my life, or like this will tell a good story or something, but yet it grows out of something genuine, real, and deep. Like it occurs to me as deeply authentic. And I guess so, like, you use the word like fulfilling before, like and you said in some of the early work, it was around like women's economic empowerment. And it makes that, and why it's fulfilling makes a lot of sense. You're like, well, okay, here's a situation, because a lot of women that I know that are abused can't get out of the situation because they're dependent financially or for food or for like whatever the situation is. It's like, and actually my own understanding of poverty has always been not having money, it's not having choices. Like there is nowhere to go because I'm backed into a corner. I have nowhere to go. And so I'm curious, like, I would like you to share a little bit about, and we'll kind of just take this as a journey throughout your vocation to what kind of the projects you're working on today. But like, talk about what were some of those early projects, the things that you did, like, how did you find your way into doing some of that economic empowerment? What did it look like? Who were you working with? Like, what were the seedling stories of that work for you?
I don't know how to answer that question because everything kind of stacks up. You know, it goes back like 10 years or something. It goes back to my work and the first work that I did in social media marketing. So
Tell us about that then. Start there then. Like, just because we got time for it. So just like navigate through. Like how did, because I am interested in that blossoming that's taking place. Like it's unfolding over time.
Yeah, and it's definitely still unfolding. Like I'm not, you know, it's not done.
Exciting. It's very exciting.
I'm still going through all the growing pains of unfolding. But yeah, honest to God, this is not something that I say just because we've been a part of this Gary Vee thing. I read Thank You Economy. I understood that kind of like taught me that you weren't necessarily confined to a job, that you weren't you could build something, you could do something. Social media, to me, I just fell in love with it because it just seemed like human psychology at scale. And I know that there are horrible things about it. I know that. I accept that there are trade-offs.
Sure.
But it's just a way to bring light and empathy and connection and shared stories and shared values, especially when you grow up a little bit different or you feel like the people around you don't really get you. You know, like social media can be a powerful way to feel connected and to not feel so isolated. And so when I read the Thank You Economy, and I never thought about this before. You know, we had Facebook at the time, Twitter maybe, but just never thought about building a business. My very first idea when I read that book was, wouldn't it be cool? Because I had really loved the idea of impact sourcing also. So outsourcing to a lot of the outsourcing work at that time was being done in like India and Bangladesh and things like that. But because the Caribbean, we speak English, you know, we grew up speaking English very well. I thought that maybe that might be a good thing to have here. And so I thought, when I read Thank You Economy, wouldn't it be cool? This was the thought. Wouldn't it be cool to have an impact sourcing agency for women who are survivors of gender-based violence? Because part of the reason that other forms of like employment might not work is because you need to protect the woman's anonymity. Like that is central to that kind of work. So we can't necessarily, you know, build like big projects and have them be like in front cameras and things like that. But they could, like, we could still imagine like a call center run by women, you know, that employs women who are survivors of gender-based violence. They're not risking anything. We're not asking them to like sacrifice their privacy or put themselves in more harm to be able to financially empower themselves. So that was my first thought. And you know, I was in my early 20s, had no resources, just like eating ramen every day, so couldn't take action on that. But I did get a job in social media marketing. I put together like a 25-page portfolio, sent it to the biggest media company in Trinidad, and they were just trying to figure it out. And they were like, okay, we'll hire you. And so that was my first job. That was part-time because I was still in school at that time. So and that is how I first got into social media. Now I have had other jobs related to it. So I would do like freelance graphic design, or I worked in fashion for a while. So I was the fashion designer's assistant, but I would also manage the social media. So it was always there. It was always a part of all of the work that I've done since then. And then the pandemic hit. And everyone in my social network knew that I had this experience with social media, and everybody who had a business reached out for me to help them figure out how to sell online. Because even if they weren't taking it seriously before, they had to now, because it was the only way, because we were on lockdowns. It was the only way to communicate. It was the only way to actually get sales. And so that was kind of how it all came together. And initially it was called impact marketing because that idea of having an impact sourcing, but in a marketing agency kind of business model, I still had really loved that idea, and I still do love that idea, and I hope that I get to do it in the future. But it was called that because of my love for impact sourcing. But then it just quickly pivoted. I'm like, okay, I don't want to run an agency. I don't want to hire people. Like, it was too much work. So I just quickly pivoted to consulting, and then did that for about 2 years. Was very happy to like make money and actually have clients and have people want to work with me. And then it started to feel like something was missing. And then I started to get connections to people through social media who were interested in other projects. So I reached out to the person who ran a empowerment program for young women, and I'm like, I think this might be a good fit for your program. And I sent her something for free, and she loved it, and she asked me to speak to the group of young women, and then she recommended me to other people. And so because of that, this free ebook that I sent her, I started to build relationships in the nonprofit sector, in the social impact work sector, and haven't done anything else since then.
And so that thing that you had sent and said, I think this is a good fit. One, I just love this. I love this story, because you kind of begin with like this impact in mind, but then pretty quickly you're like, yeah, but actually, like, here's what actually pays the bills and gets me jobs. And like I'm not going to be in a position to do all this hiring, but then still kept that in mind to go, all right, let me reach out and offer in the same way. You're like, so I sent them this portfolio, then I sent her this ebook, or I like put this stuff together. Just intrigued by the work you did to kind of create these opportunities for yourself. But when you reached out to her, what was it that was, here's a good fit? It was like training them in kind of navigating social media and doing that for for themselves.
It was so it's high school girls.
Okay.
She has a nonprofit that teaches them entrepreneurial skills. So they might not necessarily be starting their businesses, but she collaborates with like 1 or 2 high schools, and just so that they have options. Because again, that is the core belief. It's not about social media for me. It is about giving you hope, giving you options, giving you, the ability to have agency over your life.
Love it.
So that was it. It was a workbook called Passion to Profit, and it was an ebook that I sold, and it was just for people who had a business idea but didn't have a process to validate the idea, didn't know how to do market research, didn't know where to start. So I thought that this would be good, and then they actually included that workbook in their curriculum since then. So that it was just such an honor to have something that I it's so trippy to think about being a creator sometimes. Like, you just sat down and you typed up this thing, and then it has the ability to have a life of its own, and touch people that you will never meet.
That's incredible.
It is really.
So this is like the first kind of foot in the water here, but then you said, and then I haven't done anything outside of that space, but this, you said, open doors to other connections. And as we were beginning, you rattled off lots of different causes. So like how does that play out then? Like, they tell a friend that works with another local nonprofit, and they're all kind of in entrepreneurship space, or like, just, I don't know, start sketching a little bit of like,
So there were really two things that kind of led to me being able to work with like these 7 or 8 nonprofits. That one with Akosua, that's her name. So she told people, because she also does a lot of work with climate resilience. So she told people that she works with, about my work and how valuable it was, I guess. And they decided to reach out to me and contact me and hire me or work with me. And then another person who was incredibly influential, she has a company called Nudge Caribbean, which supports around 200 entrepreneurs throughout the Caribbean. It's a nonprofit, actually. I'm sorry I said company, but
Yep. No.
so, and they had for Global Entrepreneurship Week, they had a pitch competition that was open to youth entrepreneurs, so entrepreneurs under 35. And I applied for that, and I was a finalist. I was like one of the top 5, and then the top 3 would get like cash prizes. So I started to build a relationship with her from applying for that.
Yep.
And then that same company now reached out to me to mentor the 200 entrepreneurs that's in there. It's truly, I am like, the breadcrumbs of my life is just so incredible. I feel grateful every day, but yeah, so it was just from applying to the grant to get like 2,000, I think the top level of the grant was like 2,000 US or something. So but it started the relationship.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and then that was a gig that you got, was to start becoming a mentor for everyone else coming through the program then?
Yeah, so and she started another nonprofit dedicated to helping Venezuelan migrants, because we have a lot of Venezuelan refugees passing through Trinidad on their way to like the US and things like that. But they also need work. They need dignified work, and these women tend to get lured into prostitution. And so she started a nonprofit in collaboration with some other agencies to give these women work in garment construction. And so that's kind of how everything ties together.
So across all of these different opportunities, from climate resilience to some of the entrepreneurship stuff, and like the different, you end up finding yourself in these like mentorship kind of relationships with sounds like mostly young entrepreneurial kind of folks. And so this is what then would lead to, I guess, over time starts leading to some of the project you're working on today, with like going, hey, there's a bunch of things that we repeat a lot, like that we need to like be able to scale. This would be more scalable if it's like, I can actually record some of these things or get some of these things captured. And is this like what then leads into some of the ed tech development?
Yeah, it was. And the work that I do with marginalized entrepreneurs in particular, like coastal entrepreneurs, the Venezuelan migrants, people who do not have a lot of resources, you see that. So initially, when I had conceptualized of the EdTech platform, I thought it was just going to be like a regular thing where you log in on your computer, it's a web page, but these people don't have computers, they don't have stable internet, they don't have tablets. So an app, they have a phone. There's free Wi-Fi at like government offices, there's free Wi-Fi at the library, there's free Wi-Fi, there are places in the country where there's free Wi-Fi. And I know what it's like to try to build something scrappy, and I know that there are entrepreneurs out there who have such a desire to build a business that they would go to the library for an hour to update an app so that they could get access to more resources. So yeah, that was why it pivoted. Those insights really helped me to see like what is valuable and what is noise. Because sometimes we think everything, like you have to do like this whole like 6-month thesis project to learn social media, or to learn content creation, or to learn biopsychology or market research or anything like that, when it's really not that complicated. And by being forced to simplify some of these things so that it could be communicated in a way that somebody who doesn't have my experience, didn't finish high school, is not a native English speaker, so that they can take action on it. That is kind of where the micro learning component of this project came from. It came from understanding or learning, really, learning through these conversations what is necessary and what is noise. What do you actually need to move the ball forward, and what is kind of, it's nice to know, but it's not necessary.
Bells and whistles or something. So what is that? Can you paint a little picture for me? Like, what is that then? Like, where do you end up? That does sound like some super challenging like limitations to kind of work around. And then like, what are the essential pieces? How do you deliver those pieces? How do you overcome challenges like language and things like that? So where do you, and I know this is all in development, so some of these maybe questions we're still figuring out, but like where where do you, how do you then address, like, how do you boil that down?
I think that is the value of working with experts. Like sometimes, you don't want to gatekeep, but somebody with 10 years or 7 years experience in a field will be able to concisely say, for the same reason that like a 15-minute session with Gary is, I don't know how expensive it is, but he's able to deliver value because he's able to look at the person across from him, understand who they are and the limitations and challenges of their life, and then give them feedback or advice that will be relevant to their particular circumstances. So I do think that experience counts for something, and that is why the mentors that I would hopefully be working with in building this platform will have that experience to be able to do that. And then I also myself, from working with them, would be able to say, well, is that necessary? Like, let that be the point. Let that be the filter through which every word is that word necessary? Is there a simpler word we could use? Is there, so let it, and I've always loved this about marketing, that it is about the customer. It's not about me, it's not about my brand, it is about the person on the other side of the experience or transaction, if you want to call it that. But I cut you off, I'm sorry.
No, not at all. It takes a real it is like ultimately it's like a practice in emotional intelligence, right? To go like, hey, listen, I know, like I'm speaking to you, not at you or whatever. It's just like and like the messaging or the task of marketing is recognizing like audience and who you're talking to and like putting it in the proper context. I am really intrigued by the distinction you're making, like between what is valuable and what is noise, and I'm tempted to try to like abstract that out to lots of conversations, right? To say like what are the essential pieces here that you to really kind of hone in and focus your energy on the thing that is actually delivering value, delivering impact. So where are you at in this process? Would you say like this is a fairly new initiative, right?
Very new. So day one was incredibly helpful in helping me to refine or validate.
I know what that was, but for those listening, do you want to like give some context of what are we talking about?
So we were incredibly fortunate in being gifted is it a cohort with the day one fellowship. And it was an intensive 4-week program where we had daily calls, right, John? I think with different experts. They were
regular.
I think initially it was daily, and then at the end of the 4 weeks we had to present our idea as a pitch. And before that 4 weeks, this was just an idea for me. This was just like, it might be cool to do that. It was, the inside of like, maybe I should build something because these questions keep coming up. And because of that, like concentrated 4 weeks of like, what are you doing? What are you building? Who is it for? Like, that really provided a solid foundation for this to be able to be built on. And that was in May or June, so not that long ago.
Yeah, we just did it. It was so incredible to watch this concept really unfold rapidly, develop and clarify itself, and knowing that. And so then you come out and like, even since like have gotten like a real like framework and presentation and started like pursuing some funding and trying to get the pieces in place for that. It's super exciting.
It has been, and everyone has been, I've sent it to people in the nonprofit world to first, because they will be my customers. So first see, is there something that the people that you work with might find valuable. Like that is how having those initial conversations were very important to me, because I think in a lot of like social development work, sometimes we try to build solutions. We build these solutions and then try to find a problem for
Correct.
it. You know,
Correct.
so
It's a major problem.
So I wanted to make sure that this was a problem that could be solved in this way. And I wasn't like romantic about it. I'm like, if this is not valuable, like I have no problem. Like I just go back to doing consulting. Like
Other
it's
things
no
I could be
problem. You're
doing,
not
yeah.
hurting my feelings by being honest with me. Like I'm not attached to this emotionally. I'm not like, it's fine. I genuinely just want your feedback. And everybody that I spoke to said that they could see it be having value. Now there is always we do always need somebody to talk to, somebody to ask a question to, somebody to say, okay, well, this is where I'm kind of getting tripped up. So that is kind of where it got refined with having a bilingual or maybe two bilingual mentors to be, or advisors to be able to answer those questions.
Now, did I hear you? Go ahead, sorry.
No, so it has gotten a little bit more developed, I think, since I sent you that first draft of the deck, and a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I know, like, I just from a little, because did I hear you right? This is gonna like take shape as a phone app. Is that?
Yeah, that
right?
Is the goal. Yeah.
And I don't know a lot about developing apps, but I do have a friend that does like software development, and we have a little project that we had worked on that one day hopefully we'll find funds to finish. But it was let's say like a tool for caregivers, people that are full-time caregivers looking out for family members that are ill. It's just like everyone's like putting together their own little tools, and we're like, man, there should be something that's like designed for this situation so families can share this responsibility. Anyway, got it like a part way there, thinking we're on our way to something that's like somewhat usable. And then you take one idea like, well, it needs to be in Spanish. And it's like, well, that's 30,000, like whatever the number is, like that's outrageously expensive. This isn't just run translate on it. There's like an entire thing that needs coded into the platform. And then you're like, oh, well, we're going to, we're in an area that has, well, we need French and we need Spanish and we need English. And it's like, every little change, it's like exponentially more expensive. And and so for us, that ended up going, it's going to sit on a shelf for a little while, partly because it was a side project to begin with to both of us, but then also those numbers got quite high. Got quite high, and we didn't see a very clear, or we weren't doing this with the intention of it being like super profitable. While there might be avenues for revenue, most of the models for revenue weren't prioritizing the people that needed the app as much as like extracting data or something like that. So like most paths to monetization didn't seem like acceptable to us. And so I was like, a lot of our work's been like charitable service. And I'm like, no, it's people need it and it's good for the world. So we should build it. Wait, it costs how much? Okay, just set that over there. That's a someday maybe now. That's a someday maybe. But I know but for you, it seems like those numbers didn't have the same effect, because you were like, hey, there's real need, real opportunity, and there's a real business opportunity just to actually do good and do well.
Yeah, if it was not able to be financially sustainable, I would not have gone forward with it. So because we have that component, our customers are nonprofits and government agencies who are well funded.
Yeah.
So that they will be licensing or paying per year or something like that, having some kind of subscription model to be able to use the platform, to be able to let the people that they serve use the platform. And then we also will be building in an executive education aspect of it, so that it could be medium and large enterprises can use the platform to build their own training programs for their employees.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that is also a potential revenue stream.
So if I understand this right, then, and that makes sense, where you have like the customers being these agencies that maybe like the woman that hired you before said, "Oh, I have 200 young entrepreneurs. I want them to have access to this. I have a budget. I'm going to
Mhm,
subscribe to this for them so that they have
mhm,
access to utilize this, so that their people become the beneficiaries, let's say, of
mhm.
the services, whereas the customer itself is the agencies that you're working with that are serving those populations."
Yes, correct. And
It's a good
yeah,
model.
I hope so. I hope so. We'll see. But it will also have free resources. That is incredibly important to me. It will also just have free things that you just log in with an email
Yep.
and be able to access like 10 or 15 training programs for free.
That are just
So
like anybody. Yeah. That, I
mhm.
mean, one,
And
that's going to
I will
help build
probably
reputation and brand and everything as well.
I will probably volunteer my time and to do those because I do want to pay the people who will be creating the training
Of
programs
course.
well market standards. So it is expensive, but at the same time, I know that it can be financially sustainable in 2 years, you know. So
So in terms of the development piece now, is fundraising kind of like the big focus where you're at right now, is like putting
mhm.
the numbers together so you can actually execute?
Yeah, so I did I love reverse engineering a big project into like what makes sense. Like, okay, so the end goal is this big platform that could do all of these things.
Yep.
And then what do I need to do before that? And what do I need to do before that? I love like reverse engineering to me is how I get everything done. So being able to like see that next step clearly, which is the platform, just the technology of having the thing built, um, that's usable, that's like tested. And that is what I'm focused on fundraising
Okay.
right now. Now there is an opportunity to get grant funding that is a little bit more than that, but I probably would not hear about that until the end of the year. And then also, I just don't want to have all my hopes on that.
Sure.
So, and also, Alan Hamilton gave me some really good advice in our session with her. Do you remember? She was like, "Be your first yes," and I'm like, "Okay." So I will be relaunching our program in January, and then all of the proceeds from that will go towards building the platform.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, okay, what are you launching and when?
I'm launching my Elevate coaching program. I've only launched it once before, but there was this was like 2 years ago.
Okay.
I had like a lot less followers and things like that. But 11 people signed up for it, and I only took in 4 people. So I knew that there is some kind of demand for it.
Yep.
So it's a 4 week coaching program for social media marketing.
4 weeks, social media
Mhm.
marketing.
And
Uh,
you'll have one-on-one time with me. So
all right. So I'm anticipating that as people are listening to this, they already love you and they're already wanting to support the work you're doing. And now there's an opportunity to actually get some time, like get some coaching and leadership around social media marketing, which, as far as I understand, everybody needs to be paying attention to, regardless, because you're out here telling stories, making sales, whatever. Like, this is the
Mhm,
world we live in now. So
mhm.
and assuming you don't have that like platform up to sign up for yet, I want to like, let's just, this might have been at the end of the show, but like go ahead and just, how can people find you, follow you? Like, where are people going to either support your work or pay attention to when this is coming out? Because as you say it, I'm like, people want to sign up for that.
Probably my website would be the best place, and my Instagram, because I'm such a hypocrite, John. Like I haven't posted in like 5 months or
You're like, you should totally be doing this.
something.
Also, I'm busy building something. All right.
No,
So
but I think that like let me just that ties into my philosophy with social media. Like you just said everyone should be on social media. I'm like, if it doesn't align with a personal or professional goal, then don't do it. And I feel absolutely no guilt
yep.
about not showing up on social media because I don't have anything to sell. I'm not trying to build thought leadership. I'm not trying to like build a brand or pivot a brand or do anything right now. So it doesn't feel necessary for me right now. And I
Mm,
know that the platform that I'm working on, the trade-off makes sense for me.
that makes sense.
So
So do you want to tell people though where that website is or where that social media is so that if people do want to be in the know when let's say this social media course comes up, because knowing one that it's available is interesting, but beyond that, knowing that all the proceeds are going to go to help build a platform to empower kind of economic development among, let's say, young entrepreneurs or just like disadvantaged entrepreneurs in your country, like that's also really like a double benefit of this thing. And I expect that people listening might want to connect, so you should tell them how or where.
Yes, so the website is ashleycaron.com. Maybe we could have the spelling of that somewhere. Or do you want me to spell
Yeah,
it?
no, that's fine. Well,
Okay.
it's Caron, right? But I could put
Yeah.
that. I'm sure I could put a link somewhere. I'm not always the best at the show notes thing, so.
And the Instagram is Ashley Caron. I haven't used it. I don't even know.
It's there. You just search her name. You will find it. I assure you.
Caron.tt, I think. I just have
This is hilarious. It actually is ironic and hilarious. You know what's it's really funny though. I think this illustrates a really interesting point about focus and attention, because this has been something that you've done a lot with for a long time, and then you've now put your attention on this other project, and you said, yeah, the trade-off is worth it. I've made a trade, and like it means you've said no to some stuff to say yes to something else, which is a kind of sacrifice. It's a kind of pivot. And to the point of like, I don't even know what my handle on Instagram is. That is a little ridiculous. However, it does illustrate that your attention has really shifted, and that actually is itself interesting. And there's a bit of a lesson probably for people in that, of like, no, recognizing like, I know for me, like I often fall victim to thinking I could just do everything. And then that means that everything gets left done poorly or quickly or whatever. And we do need to make trade-offs. And when we say yes to stuff, it does equal saying no to stuff. I'd love to like, I don't know, like dive into this a little bit. And like, how does that land as you like think about that?
Yeah, I am an incredibly self-aware person. Even before therapy, I am not someone who does multitasking well. I get overwhelmed really quickly. I kind of just have to go into like hibernation mode with a project, and that is how I build everything. Now I know that is not sustainable. I know that next year will be different, that I will also have to like have my business and this project and my nonprofit work. So I am building the tools and I'm putting systems in place to be able to do that. But I think self-awareness is key, and knowing that if I really wanted this thing to have a shot of existing, that I did need to just put everything aside. I'll put like 95% of things aside and focus on it. Yeah.
Now, as you think about self-awareness, that I'm just glad you named it, because I'm curious, like as you work with other entrepreneurs, or even as you think about like the things that are needed. I mean, this is in my mind, quite high on a list for entrepreneurship or for people in general, but like as like what you're building, and like, are you cut from the right cloth, or are you in the right arena, and recognizing kind of who you are and what you're built for, and rather than trying to like tackle something that you're not specifically gifted at or made for or whatever. How much of that work do you do, or have you done kind of through these like kind of mentoring and coaching and things like that with these young entrepreneurs? Like how big of a piece of the puzzle would you say that is?
Yeah, it's not something that like we check off in like the first session. It is like an evolution to get them to usually we'll start by them having goals, like listing out, well, what are your business goals? What are your life goals? And then through the course of our sessions together, building the pieces of that and being like, well, that's great, but like you're doing everything in your business right now. We have someone who's selling fish, a particular type of fish in a coastal community, and he has to like cut firewood, he has to like pick seasonings, he has to like everything that we take for granted. he has to do that. So having a business goal of like having another location within a 12-year period is not, he could do it. He's gonna need a lot of help and it's gonna take a lot of work. And so I'm not like in the business of saying no to people, but like understanding the factors, understanding the reality of our lives, you know, like accepting this is where it is, this is where we are, and we could draw that back to that first childhood experience with my grandma that I told you about.
Yeah.
This is the landscape. We have to, it's like a GPS. You have to know where you are before you know where you're going. You have to have like honesty about that. You can't just go somewhere if you don't, the path needs to start from where you are. So yeah, that is a lot of the work that we do, but it's not like a box that we just check at the beginning. Sure. It is ongoing.
Are there any tools that you use though, like for doing that with people?
It's different. It depends on the person. So
okay, no, yeah, well, and the reason I was asking, like, I know there's different things for needs. So you're doing, these are all like quite customized things you're going through with each individual, which is great. But I do know, and maybe this is something to look at if you haven't, but like there are tools that are like, let's say typologies, things that are like, you know, people are familiar with Myers-Briggs or something like the Enneagram, or things that like, it isn't a final answer. But a lot of these, I know for me, have been quite helpful to read through these things and go, oh, like that's like a type of person, like something like introversion and extroversion. Like we, you know, those are real. Conscientiousness as a temperament, that's a real thing. They could be like observed or measured between us in a population. And I don't know, I know for me, like stacking up tools like that have actually been really helpful for the task of self-reflection, like kind of, and especially between people, like the like helping, because this is another thing, is like knowing yourself, but then if you're working on a team, like you were talking about, you're speaking to that individual, knowing like they don't work like you work necessarily, and like there's something else that motivates them or something else that's important to them. And those tools I know have always been extremely helpful for me. I was just curious if there were any like favorites in those, partly just because I want to know, is there one I haven't heard of and I should be taking? And then also just like, you know, just curiosity, frankly.
Not really. Like I'm aware of it. Like I have done the Myers-Briggs test, but I don't know what you call it.
Do you remember? So then you don't remember do you remember your?
I think it's INTJ.
INTJ. INTJ.
Is that one?
That is the same as me, I believe.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I don't think it's a huge portion of the population, as far as I understand, either.
Yeah. I think like 3% or something, if I remember correctly. Yeah. But I am familiar with it, but it is I don't, not a go-to. It's not like I say, like go do this stuff and then we'll work together. But understanding that people have different personalities, that people are motivated by different things, that people have different goals in different seasons of life. Taking that into the work that I do with them, that's important.
So whether this is working with others or working with, or just how you frame your own project in general, like as an abstract, let's say, like how would you define success?
Feeling fulfilled. Like I think that's it for me. There have been points in my life where I like wanted to run away to an ashram and just not, because at that season of life, spiritual fulfillment was most important, and developing myself spiritually and feeling connected to God and with some bigger purpose was success. Was how I would have defined success in that time in my life. So feeling fulfilled, knowing that I am living in my integrity, that my words and my actions align with who I want to be and what I think my work is in this world.
That's really good. Well, and it's interesting, as you know, the first word you say is fulfilling, and then like a lot of what you've talked about in the work that you have done working with, let's say, like you exactly use that word with women and economic empowerment, is like, this was some of the most fulfilling work. What I would say, like, in your experience, maybe what are some things that you've seen yourself do that you would say, like, it's almost like I'm doing exactly what I was created for, both with the personality thing, that it's fulfilling, that it's like I'm really good at it. Like, and this could be like super micro, even, where it's like the thing that like maybe triggers flow state, or you like I lose myself in it, or like are there tasks that you're like, no, when I'm doing this, I'm in a special place.
Hmm. I love learning.
Mm.
I love research. I love, like even the research I'm doing or that I did to build a platform about like, do I just believe that entrepreneurship is a powerful vehicle to social change, or does like UNESCO and the IDB and the World Bank Group and like do these people who spend all of this money on research also think that? And being able to get into that research, I really love. I'm just a big old nerd. And yeah. So I love learning as much as I can and then extracting insights that would be relevant. And I think that is also part of the reason why I love coaching so much, because you get to pull all of these things together to help somebody else make progress that is important to them. And yeah,
That
I think
resonates with
that's
me.
it.
That resonates with me a lot too. Like I get really almost obsessed
Mm-hmm.
with a question or a new
Mm-hmm.
topic, and actually it's like I'm like, and I'm super happy to like move on to the next one too once I've like gleaned some insights. I'm like, it's almost like good for my ADD. Maybe I'm like hyper focused on something and go, aha, I got something to say. And then what's next? Like happy to
Mm-hmm.
like tackle the next thing that I don't know anything about, to kind of like
Yeah.
go and pursue that. It is it is something that I don't know, just as you were saying, I'm like, oh yeah, that resonates with me. I get like deeply engrossed and engaged in something like
Mm-hmm.
that, like meaningful, kind of insatiable hunger for insight or knowledge about something that it's, and honestly at some level it's just going into the unknown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if I had to say like my biggest strength or something that you didn't ask this question, I just put it
There
out
you
there.
go. Yeah, that's a good question. Let's go.
Is leaning into curiosity and not being afraid of doing of learning new things just for the sake of learning, just because it brings me joy. Like right now I love learning about regenerative medicine, and I just spend hours a day learning about regenerative medicine. This doesn't have anything to do with any area of my life, but giving ourselves permission to follow our curiosity without thinking that it needs to be productive, that all our time needs to be productive. And the funny thing is, like when I've done this before, when I've just kind of followed a trail through somewhere really random, there is a point where it makes sense as an example. So I'll give you an example.
Good.
In all of this talk about like AI and if it's going to steal jobs and things like that, I went through a period, like I love historical fiction, and if I finish a really good book, I want to learn more about the time period. So the Industrial Revolution was incredibly fascinating to me, and I learned through fiction, through historical fictions, that there were these people called crossing sweepers. So people moved around on horses poop, so people had to be able to scoop up that poop to clean the roads. So these
Yep.
were people crossing sweepers. And then when cars were being marketed, there was real concern over the jobs of these crossing sweepers. And I would not be able to make that point effectively if I didn't just follow this random trail about like, there have been other periods in our history, in the history of humanity, where there's been a lot of change in a short period of time. How did people cope? Where did we get it right? And where did we get it wrong? And so I have like content coming out, about that question, like the role of AI. Okay, well, let's look back. Let's look back to the Industrial Revolution and see where they got it right. They got it right that progress was made because more people got mobility, things like that. They got it wrong because they left a lot of people behind. Like society has a responsibility to take care of people who will be losing a source of income. Not by filling a skills gap, but by actually taking care of people.
Yeah. Well, that's
So yeah, that is an example of a random tangent that I think could make a point
yeah.
in a way that that feel
Well, no,
that's
and
connected.
it is. It gave me pause because I'm like so tempted to be like, oh, I want to talk about this back in the day. Like I immediately was like, oh, I want to go. Like, there's so much more interesting stuff back there. Yeah, it is effective. It got my wheels turning. Now, you said the current curiosity is what? Regenerative? Say what it is?
Medicine.
Medicine. Okay.
Regenerative medicine.
So let's
Yeah.
geek out for a minute. What are we learning? What are we
Yeah,
talking about?
okay.
Why is
This
this interesting?
this is not going to be relevant to anybody else in this podcast. So
That's what we're here
like
for. That's
I
all right.
expect people to drop off right about now.
I doubt
So-
it. I think you're wrong. We follow our curiosity.
Yeah, so regenerative medicine, there is this so I've really been primarily following the work of one professor. His name is Michael Levin. I can send you a very short video if you want after.
Okay.
But he is working on the intelligence of cells, and then using that, so it could be stem cells, it could be other cells, but can you, so imagine like you broke a finger and you put some kind of cells where on the wound, and you signal through bioelectricity is his work, is his area of specialty, that, and the finger regenerates. And not just the finger regenerates as it was, but, and this is the core of his work, that it knows when to stop, because that is a signal of intelligence also. It knows when to stop. And so I just find this to be, he's actively working on this. Like, there are human beings on this planet right now who could cure cancer, who could cure every kind of physical trauma through this technology. Like, that just lights me up. Like, there's nothing that could be happening in social media or in marketing or in anything else that would like make me feel this hopeful for the future. And I think it's because we have, you know, conversations about healthcare and how expensive it is and how frustrating it is.
Yeah, and how non-accessible it is, and right, yeah, that's right.
Like, you should have to have a GoFundMe because you need a life-saving surgery, you know. But and he also kind of has that philosophy of he just seems like a genuinely good person. Like, he doesn't have any qualms about like putting an exploitative insurance industry out of business, because it is life-saving work and it is incredible just to think. So one quick, let me just tell you this.
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
I'll send you this video because I will get things wrong. But he took the cell from the skin of a skin cell from a frog, and the only thing this cell has been programmed to do through however many years of evolution is to be skin cells on a frog. And his question is like, well, what'll happen? What'll happen if we just create an environment for this thing to be something else? And he shows you this little video with this skin cell, originally a skin cell. It's just a cell now. And it's moving and it's changing its mind and it's doing all kind of random things that is not programmed into the DNA of the cell. So that, and I think that his point is intelligence isn't just about the hardware. You know, it's not just about the DNA. And I just love learning about it. It just makes me feel so hopeful.
That's awesome.
About the world and about our future.
Where did you first come upon this? What spark? What was the spark?
A random YouTube video, I think. Yeah. I think the title of the video was something about Picasso and evolution. And that was really interesting to me. And in the thumbnail of the video was a tadpole with 3 eyes. And the reason it had 3 eyes was because through bioelectric signaling, they told the tadpole to create another eye on the tail or something. So this is how far along they are. And I'm like, that's not real. Like, that's just, you know,
that's sci-fi, right? Yeah.
Like a thought, you know, like it's just like, and it might have been a 5-minute video. I spent so much of my life right now just consuming his he is, He's gonna win a Nobel Prize sometime because of this work. It is incredible.
No, I think this was worth doing. One, because watching you just light up is amazing, but also like the point of like having permission to follow your curiosity and to know that like there are things in us that might not be, and God only knows where some of this goes, whether, like you said, it's a way to illustrate another point down the road or to teach something, or even to explain why thumbnails and titles matter, because that's what got your, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
legit, there's so many things that this could produce in you and for you, but at the moment it produces interest and excitement, and that's good. Like it's a source
And
of life
hope.
and health, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, this is great. And hope,
Yeah.
and who's got enough of that, you know what I mean? So it's like
Exactly.
no, it's so good. Now, okay, I want to circle back to the entrepreneurship. I can't say it exactly as an effective tool for social change. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
One, every time I hear you say it, I deep in my gut, there's like a amen rumbling in me, like, amen, that is right, I agree with you. And you said, but do people agree? Like, is this something that people that are researching this or studying this, or what are they finding? I'm curious, like what you've found in exploring that, I don't know. Can you like, well, what do you mean that entrepreneurship is an effective vehicle for social change? Like, why do you believe that?
hmm I can talk a little bit about the research, and
Okay.
part of the reason that I'm feeling like a sense of urgency to build this platform and put everything
Good.
aside right now. There is real concern in a study done by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development and UNESCO and the Inter-American Development Bank, that there's real concern that AI is going to replace predominantly the jobs of women, because men are just more comfortable with technology. And I think women are 25% less likely to, if you give them a Google spreadsheet, to like create a formula or do something like that. We're just not as exposed to technology. And there's a real concern that AI is going to widen that gender economic equality gap.
Interesting.
Gap.
Okay.
And so, and the study was specifically on how AI would impact women in emerging economies, but also you could see AI having a negative impact on all forms of economic equality. Like you could see a lot of people being left behind because AI could do a job more efficiently, and because they are not being exposed to it to learn it right now. So one of the first programs that I'll be creating is like AI for content creation. One of the first free programs that I'll be creating, using AI to create content, just to get people familiar with the technology, to get people comfortable with it, so that the jobs that's being replaced isn't only like virtual assistants and graphic designers and artists and things like that. So that is some of the research. That is part of why I feel this agency right now. And I love AI. I love it. It's not that I'm like AI is the devil or something. I do love it. I think it's incredibly efficient. But I also think that, what I said before, that we have a responsibility to try to raise everyone.
I think I'm in the same place with you with that, right? It's like, this is so exciting. Also, this is gonna have like major consequences. So we need to like get ready for this tidal wave coming.
Yeah. And really get ready, really expose, give people the opportunity to learn how to use the technology. I am worried about that research, and having a little bit of it is kind of fueling, making sure that we don't leave people behind.
As you're saying that, like one of the, I walk with, it's always funny when I say I work with on the work ethic, and it's like, oh wait, anyway, I walk with a lot of folks that do not have employment, right? There's a lot of folks throughout Tampa that maybe live on the streets or precariously housed, a lot of unemployed people. And I have walked with these folks for a long, long time. And I have seen how deadly, let's say, that not having work can be. So, and by which I don't mean employment, but what'll happen is, like, you could say to someone like, "Why aren't you working?" And they'll say, "Well, nobody's hiring." And I'm like, "What does it have to do with working? Like, you can work on something. Like, you can like go. There's work everywhere you look. Like, that needs fixed. That needs clean. That lady needs help. That need like just offer your work as a gift, because you need to work. You need to do something meaningful and hard." And this has been a conviction of mine for a long, long time in the work that we're doing. And I've been trying to egg people on to do work. And this is part of why it was so important to me to like divorce the conversation from employment only, right? Because I'm like, forget the income. The income matters. We need money out here, but like also you need to just do hard things. You need to accomplish something that makes you like get up and be like, I did that. Like that's really important to the human. And this is just like where I would say like the work ethic as a conversation, as a podcast, it kind of originated, but also then related to the development of technology like AI. I started looking around going like self-driving cars, for example, like, man, these drivers, like, it's cool today. It's a great job today, but like you don't have very long. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's, I don't know, let's say discovery work in a courtroom, or like, there's just like, you could just start going down the list, and there's like so many things that computers and AI and just technology in general, like, can already do better. But we'll do better and better and better so fast. And I think what I started, like, it's part of like what you're speaking to a little bit, not specific to women, but specific to just like when you were talking about the what do they call the crossing sweepers, right? When you were talking about that earlier about, that was about AI, like illustrating like we adapt. But what came to mind was there's a video on YouTube called Humans Need Not Apply. It's a pretty old video by CPG Gray, I think is his name. He's a great, like, fast animated video maker. But there's this place where there's these two horses talking back in that day. They're like it's like the car comes out, and there's like the horseless carriage, right? And they're two horses talking to each other going, those things will never take our jobs. Right. And he's like, that's you today talking about these computers, right? Like for sure it's going to change things. And how much of the jobs that we look at today, humans need not apply, like in the very near future. And it landed where I was like, this conversation that's been so meaningful to me around unemployment and poor people and homeless people is actually seems like it's going to be a more and more important conversation about not just what we're doing for income, because I actually think there's probably going to need to be something like universal income or something like this is going to have to emerge, because I'm not sure that the efforts we put in and the economic returns are going to stay the way that they are. I just don't see how that's conceivably possible. Maybe there's a way, but and this isn't like a political position at all. It's just like pragmatically, like, how's that going to work? But also, like, if you don't have a job, I need to say to you now, like, you still need to work. Like, you need to do something hard, go learn about regenerative medicine, go dig into something hard, go pick up something heavy, go help a neighbor build something, like, because just like you need food, you need work. I see your wheels turning, so I'll just stop there and let you kind of respond.
Yeah, I agree with you that the way to solve the problem of unemployment, at least on an economic level, is for people to solve the problem of inequality on an economic level. I mean, it's for some kind of universal income. But yes, I also agree with you. Like, I have a really strange relationship with ambition, and like, I don't consider myself an ambitious person, but I also know that we need to contribute. We are social animals. We've always had a role in our community. We've always had a role in our family. We've always, like, we thrive. Our physiology thrives when we're connecting and when we're serving.
Yep.
And so that is incredibly important in moving forward. It's not just about I mean, a lot of people could do with a universal income right now, just to like not worry and not have the stress. So I don't want to diminish the importance
Correct.
of that.
Correct.
But like, yeah, we do need to be of service. We need to feel like we're a part of something bigger than ourselves. And that is not like my opinion. Like when people research this, it
That's
is
right.
our brains change, our bodies change, our immune system is so much better when we're feeling connected and feeling purposeful. And so I completely agree. Like, what does work look like? What does ambition look like when we don't have to? What does success look like when we don't have to work? I love those questions. I love
Yep.
having them marinate in my brain.
Well, and this is like at some level the whole point of why I wanted to have this podcast. One is like work is a broad enough subject that I'm like, I can talk to anyone about anything, and it's gonna map around this. But like you're saying, it is like, how are we defining these things? And I do think like I started noticing if I say like, what do you like something as simple as what's your first memory of work, and someone tells me about their first job, I'm like, wait, we have so equated these in our brain that what happens when the concept of job goes away? Like what are we setting ourselves up for?
Yeah.
That this is our frame.
I think we're kind of seeing the answer to that question a little bit in like the drastic increase in loneliness and depression and suicide. You know, like I think we kind of have some data that's telling us that we need to pivot. We need to pivot quickly.
Yeah, what do they call that? Diseases of despair, right? Like the just addiction and suicide. I think you're right. I actually think and it is. It's like there's this drastic spike in that, and then and it's people want to turn and point to certain causes, like you'll go, well, that maps to like social media or employment or this or that, and it's complex. I don't think any of us can go like this equals this, but I do think you're right to go. I mean, just look at the timeline though and go, something is not working. Something is not going well for us in our mental health. And like, it's funny when you say like connecting and serving, and as like just a fundamental need for human beings to flourish, and to think like more and more we become, isolated and self-serving, right? Like culturally, we're like isolate and take care of number one. And it's like, oh, that is the opposite of connecting and serving, right?
Yeah, I do think that is part of why we have, mental health crisis, and we have drastic suicide rates being increased, especially in younger people, because you feel like you don't have anything to live for. And that is a really big, hard, important question. And that is in my opinion, a failure of society, a failure of religion, a failure of I think the pharmaceutical industry tried to swoop in, but I also think it's a failure of that. So
and as I think about, I don't know, even in myself, like the way that entrepreneurship, having projects, having something to build has been such a source of responsibility and purpose and meaning in my life. Like if I was prone to, let's say, melancholy, the medicine had been, something greater than myself to contribute, like to say like, and so I'm just curious, like if this is connected, like as you make these observations about like what's going on in the world and like how that maps to you, the urgency around or the need to get, let's say, the conversation of alternative paths like entrepreneurship into the dialogue with young people, like this, how do you see that this is like directly connected in terms of like, even back to that first comment you made, I'm trying to think what like of like not being, oh, I can't find it now, but not being like confined to your current situation, like this is actually like a question of freedom, of like having paths to take.
I think so, but I also think we need to start redefining success and redefining fulfillment and redefining some of these things. Like I love entrepreneurship. I love being an entrepreneur. I love serving entrepreneurs, but also it's not You don't have to be an entrepreneur to have a fulfilling life. You don't have
That's
to
right.
make $100,000 a year to have a fulfilling life. And so to have a bigger conversation about that, and to like I will start, I am already kind of planning the content when I relaunch my brand next year. Um, but to have some of these conversations about what is success, what is important, what will you regret not doing on your deathbed, like what will you regret not trying? Yeah, are you going to regret trying to play by everybody else's rules and not even figuring out who you are and what you want and what might make you happy?
So good.
Probably.
It's so
But
good.
can we start having those conversations?
That's right. That's right. And you're and like that's I mean, and I will say encouragingly, although they might be because of the people I choose to talk to on here, it is. But I will say I've talked to about 100 folks that we've had this conversation with now, and it is very rare. Almost never is someone going to say to the question, "What is success?" Like making a bunch of money. It people now there's a variety of responses, which is why I think it's such a fascinating question. And if you like I got to do this again, it's been too long, but if you go back through some of the episodes on the work ethic, like occasionally you'll have there's like what is success part 1, what is success part 2, where I just cut that question out from the last 20 episodes or whatever and stuck it, just that's all that episode is like answers to that question. It is interesting holding them next to each other because people say like fulfillment or meaning, or there's like these different variety of answers there, but almost all of them say, well, it isn't this thing, but like they'll point to almost like a trope that is success. Like success is, because I think everyone is aware, like, yeah, still like culturally, like what let's say the marketer tells you or what the commercials tell you or what like the zeitgeist is saying is like, sure, yeah, we say that, we know better, but like we behave still like it's dollars in the bank, it's flexing on Instagram, it's like having the whatever kind of life that for a lot of people that attain that is not fulfilling, is empty.
This is just kind of I think men in particular are having kind of like an identity crisis. It's have you been noticing this trend or this question? And I have so much compassion for men who for so long have been told this is what is a meaningful life, to like get a job and have a family and provide for your family, and that is not possible in a lot of cases anymore, just because of social and economic situation. And so I just feel like it's not enough to just say it's not enough for us to just say success is fulfillment or success is not having $100,000 a year. It is incredibly important for us to start defining what else it is, I think.
Yeah.
And to be a little bit louder about that,
celebrating those successes. In the way
as
we
much as
we
do.
And that's exactly right.
I'm hoping to work with, and I'm thinking about young men in particular, because in my work with supporting women who are survivors of gender-based violence, there are cultural and social circumstances that lead men to behave violently. And I'm not making excuses, like it's never okay, but can we minimize the incidence of these things by trying to take better care of men? So I am just kind of thinking about, and it's weird because, like I'm a social media person, I have no reason to think about these things, but I do think that we fail our society, we fail our culture, we fail our community when we don't do the work of thinking about these things, and when we don't try to be intentional about sure, I'll say that, but then if I'm posting like I had a $10,000 launch, like am I not still saying like this is what success is like?
That's right. That's right. No, it's and I love this. I'm like, because these are the kind of, because ultimately these are the important conversations, and what our work kind of grows out of is like, we've got to, it is in some way, I've always framed like the work as like practical philosophy. It's like, you got to like decide what these things are and then try to practice them, and then have like some sobriety around like analyzing your actual behavior. Cause we'll be like, this is really important to me. And like, not based on your spending, not based on your, you know what I mean? Like, to actually audit your behavior.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like, I know I say something other than that, but I still behave as if that is the case. And I think you're right. I think it's because what we're talking about is deep cultural work that needs to be done, like and it's going to take real leadership and models that we lift up 100%. Different kinds of stories.
Yeah. It's so true. It is. But like, let me ask you a question. Do you, when you think about the next like 20 or 40 years, do you feel a sense of hopelessness, or do you feel hopeful?
Ooh, interesting. So I have an interesting relationship with the concept of hope. So, okay. So there was he's actually a theologian, this old man that was being interviewed, that was asked, how do you maintain hope in the face of despair? And his answer has just echoed in my head every day. He said, how do you maintain hope in the face of despair? And he said, as a protest. And it's some level to me, like, hope is not something that is external. But it is an internal fire. It's like you get back up and you be hope, right? You like, when it's hopeless is the time that you like over my dead body, will it go that way? Right. So for me, hope is like a conviction or a posture or something that's related to like courage. It actually is the work, like the work, like work ethic should be applied to producing hope, to being hopeful. Like that actually is the work in my mind. Now, I also want to, as you say, when you look at the next 20, 40 years, I'll tell you the first thing that popped into my head, and I don't know that it's directly related to your question of hope or not, but I want to say it to someone. So there is this generation that we refer to as boomers. They go from, I think, year 1946, like their birth was 46 to like 64, I believe. If you look at that, that is a massive chunk of the population, especially here in the United States. That is a massive chunk of the population. Those people are now beginning to die off, to go into old folks' homes. This has been this is like the climax of, let's say, an economic class in the US's story, because this is like a post-war, they did better than any generation before or after. And then they've been like trying to hold it together. This is like a lot of our parents, right? Been trying to hold it together where they have children who live in this generation that are not totally making it economically, but they have parents that if now are dying off, but have been dying off and needing care for, that didn't have economic advantage. And they've been trying to hold up a generation on either side of them. And yet it was where the marketers, like if you just watch, like you could almost, I have this visual of like a picture of garden hose is like a timeline, and then a basketball moving through that garden hose. That's like what the baby boomer generation looks like with the rest of the population. And it's been if you watch the marketers, they've been speaking to that group always, like through our whole life. It's like whatever age that group is, that's where you want to market, because those are the ones that have buying power. Those are the ones that have extra income. Okay. So the only reason I'm saying all this is that is a significant number of people with a lot of economic power. And that group is now entering into retirement homes. So where the marketers are now going to speak to them is like Depends and medicine and retirement villages and whatever, like that for sure. Like this is like, if they've still got money left, that's where we're going to like market to that population. But what I guess I can't stop thinking about, I've been thinking about this for like a decade. Like I realized this probably 15 years ago. I started like thinking about that group of people, and I'm like, oh, when they leave, like when they die off, there is such a massive impact economically and to our overall like population, like the number
Mm-hmm.
of our population, and also there's the culture that is here. I don't know what to make of all that, but it was like when you just before you even got to your question, you're like, the next 20 to 40 years, I was like, boomers are gonna die. And and like and like there's no hope that they're not going to die. Like that's what people do. Ultimately they die. Maybe they die a little later, maybe, you know, whatever, maybe regenerative medicine carries them a little further, whatever. But ultimately, as far as we are so far, we are mortal. And those are the folks that are going to be like dying off. And like to me, I picture like, I don't know, here's another image. I don't know if it's helpful, but like if you pull a stop sign out of the ground, like pull a sign out of the ground, in my head, there's a big ball of concrete on the end. And let's say you were sliding that off of the edge of a table. So the concrete first, like when the concrete goes over the ledge, it's going to rip the rest of the sign over the edge, right?
Yeah.
It's somehow in my head, that's the economy. Like with this group of people, like it's such a massive question mark to me of what's going to happen. And then couple that with also the advancing of technology, also all of the other you know, the onset of things like blockchain, AI, you know, these like all the things that are happening in the technological space, and then what's happening in like the human side of things. I find it exciting in the same way that studying unknown things is exciting. We are about to venture into an extremely unknown world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am determined to be a source of hope in my community, to work toward hope. But hope in my mind, to kind of come back to your actual question, is something done as a act of protest in the face of despair. When it looks like there is nowhere to turn, you've got to stand up. Like that's the only thing I know to say to that.
Yeah. I love that. I love that answer. Hope as a form of protest. It reminds me of a quote that I heard. I cannot remember who said it, but he was talking about optimism, and he said optimism about the future requires discontent in the present. And I loved your answer because it spoke to that. You know, like we're not looking at things in isolation. Where there are two sides to the coin, and what is the other? What are we working against as we work to?
You know,
So
I
yeah.
think it's really important. Like if you have to, well, you don't have to. So you can be motivated by just having an outcome you hope for. But you will never be as motivated just having that. And you could be running from something. That's a motivation. Like you let a lion loose, I'm running, and it doesn't matter where
Yeah.
I'm going, just it's away from the lion. You know what I'm saying? So like that is
Yeah.
motivating. And so is like there's cheesecake over there and I'm running to get it. Like both of those would be helpful. But if it's away from the lion and toward the cheesecake, I don't know why I'm using these examples, but like if I have something behind me that I don't want, discontent, and something ahead of me that I desperately want, that is the optimal motivate. Like that is the greatest sense of motivation, where it's on both sides of you. It has like
Yeah.
something pulling you and something
Yeah.
repelling you.
Yeah.
And I mean, they like, you can like, they've literally demonstrated that in studies with springs and rats, where they like put them in and it's like, what rat pulls the spring the hardest? It's like the one with the
Yeah.
cat behind them and the food in
Cheese
front of
in
them or
front.
whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that I completely agree with that. But I think that we don't often pause to see what those things are, to be intentional about to notice what we're moving away from, so that we have clarity on what we're building towards.
Yeah, when you said, by the way, when you were talking about like to get where you're going, talking about personality before and goal setting, it's like this is that. It's like we have to be able
Yeah,
to
at
articulate
scale.
exactly that. Like, what is it? What, and just basic questions like, what is it that really pisses you off and keeps you up at night?
Yeah.
That's a really good question to start
Yeah.
there. Like, there's people starving out here. Okay, good. That's a good start.
Yeah.
We can work with that. If that keeps you up, like legit keeps you up and isn't just like a nice thing to say because you're on TV or something, like if that bothers you, that we can work with that. That'll really motivate.
Yeah, inequality pisses me off. I hate that we live in such an unequal world. And well, how are the ways? What are the ways? To me, entrepreneurship is practical. You know, it's incredibly practical to make the world less unequal. but what are the other ways? Yeah.
Well, and by the way, when I asked you before, like I was trying to connect entrepreneurship to the fulfillment and freedom, and I like your answer because it was like, well, it's bigger than that. And I agree with you. I'm like, yeah, entrepreneurship is just a
A
version
tool. Yeah.
of a posture that is determination, willfulness, freedom, like expressing human freedom and identity to go, I'm going to be something. I'm going to
Yeah.
do something. I'm going to accomplish something. And oh, by the way, when we do that in the marketplace, we call that entrepreneurship. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's, no, I think that's good. There were two things that you said before we run out of time. Two things you said that I like jotted a quick note down. One of them was, and I just want to circle back. You said I have a strange relationship with ambition. And you said a little bit about why you were saying that, but I just want to circle back and like ask you, like, is there anything else to be said there? Like around, I was just stood out to me.
I'm just not
like, why would you not say you're ambitious? Like, and are we defining ambition a certain way?
Yeah. So I think it ties into everything we've been talking about.
That's what I thought.
It is kind of defining ambition in the way that I don't need to have kids. I don't need to make $1 million. I don't need to, I don't need to have my own home. But like, I'm just not motivated by those things. I'm sorry. I'm motivated by, and so if we're calling those things the consequences of ambition, then I'm not an ambitious person. I'm motivated by.
Yeah,
impact.
but would it? Right. But that's the thing is you go, it would be not be wrong to say, I make it my ambition. Like I have a ton of ambition to see a more equal world. I have an ambition to make an impact on inequality. I have an ambition to see people liberated using tools like entrepreneurship, right? Like that's what bugged me about you saying it, where I was like, wait a minute, I think I know what's happening here is like ambition, like in the show Vikings, it means I just want to be king or something. It's like, okay, I'm not that. I don't need to be king. But I have major, like you have the most ambitious ambitions.
Yeah. So if the $1 million was for social impact, then yes, I would.
Correct.
So yeah, it does kind of go back to that. But part of the reason I say that I have a complicated relationship with it is because I think everything, even that skin cell of the frog, I think everything has some ambition. I think ambition is part of like creation. I think universe is still expanding on the smallest level. Frog skin cell wants to be something else and wants to have different experiences on this on smallest level. I mean, universe is expanding on the biggest level. Sorry,
I think that's right.
Yeah. So I think, and that realization kind of pissed me off. So because it made me see, well, what am I ambitious about? If I'm not ambitious about these things, which perfectly valid things to be ambitious about, I'm not like, I never want to diminish anybody else's goals.
Totally.
So perfectly valid. But if I'm not personally motivated by that, and living a fulfilling life is like core to who I am, then how am I going to do that? And that question really pissed me off, which is why I say that I don't have a good relationship with others.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. The other thing you said was about, I think the deathbed question is so good, like what you would regret. And I think you would I think people would regret, pursuing other people's frameworks and goals and whatever. Are you aware? I just wanted to like share this. There was a study done with deathbed patients. Are you aware of these like surveys?
Yeah, I forgot what the top 5 were, so you could
yeah, I know 3.
Okay.
So the top 3 that I remember, and this is like end of life, not like I'm young and I'm gonna die though because I got hit by a bus, but like end of life, long life, deathbed patients. They said, like, if you could change things or go back and do things differently, like what would you change or something like that? And they said among the top 3, the 3 that really stuck with me is I would reflect more, I would risk more, and I would invest in more things that would live on after me. And anyway, just like, oh, I think that's always a powerful thing to
Yeah.
come back to challenge us to like spend time. I mean, being willing to take risks, to invest in those things that are bigger than us. And then even this like point of this is to say like to reflect more, to take time out to like really dig into these things. And I am grateful that you would take the time to reflect on this, our relationship to our work with me, because this is part of that practice for me. And this has been incredible. I love every chance I get to talk to you. And I'll shut up for a minute here because I want to let you, I don't know if there's, want to let you kind of share. I do need to jump before too long because I got to run a free market. We got people lining up to get some groceries here in a minute, but I got a few minutes left.
No, yeah, I think those are really profound questions and insights, and maybe we could do like a post about that or something, you know, those three regrets of people who are dying. And yeah, it does come down to being intentional, to being purposeful, I think, in the way that we define success, in the way that we spend our time, in the way that we interact with others, in the way that we in the way that we serve our community, just to be intentional about it, I think is what those three things boil down to for me. I'm not sure if it's correct, but yeah, this has been amazing though. I love this conversation.
Yeah, me too. And it feels like it's interesting because like toward the end here, I'm like, oh, I got into a place where I'm like, I want to go 7 more hours now. So maybe I'll tap you back for another one. But I think we're good for now. Thank you so much for coming on. And I know we already shared how people can get in touch. I will figure out how to put those in the notes so people can click on them and find you, since you don't know what they're called anyway. And,
when you post it, I'll comment and I'll leave something so that people can find me.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. This is incredible.